So the iPhone 14 series was just released recently, and everyone is excited about the new Pro model that has the deserted island. But I almost feel like if you have any iPhone within the last couple years that's going to be updated to iOS 16, you may want to hold off on getting the iPhone 14, especially if you already have the iPhone 13. Now, I've been using Android for almost 10 years now and decided to switch to the iPhone 13 recently for about a month or so just to see what it was like. And it was, well, let's just put it this way. It wasn't as big of a change as I thought it would be, but something happened that I didn't expect. I actually liked using the iPhone quite a bit better than I thought I would. It's got things that actually make it easier to use in some cases than on my Android phones. Even though the screen might be a little bit smaller than a lot of Android phones out there, the text, buttons, some of the user interface is actually larger and makes it easier to use in my opinion. I'll admit the new features and update to iOS 16 does seem to be a little bit better than iOS 15, but was switching to an iPhone from Android really that big of a deal? To me, no, not really. You're still going to be able to do pretty much the same stuff on both. They even work in similar ways with a few minor things that you may have to get adjusted to. In my opinion, if you've been using Android and you like how things are done for the most part, I don't feel like you're really missing out on much, and I actually prefer how Android does things a little bit better than on the iPhone. Especially if you're using a Pixel phone, which is what I prefer, or even one of the S line of phones from Samsung. But have you ever heard the saying from iPhone users, iPhones just work? Well, in my first week of using the iPhone 13, it actually froze up and I could barely get it to work again. So I don't know, maybe iPhones aren't the perfect phone that I've been hearing about all this time. I was kind of shocked to see that, especially in my first week using it. I feel like one of the downsides is there's no back button on most things. Some apps have a back button down at the bottom, some don't. Others have really small text up in the corner that you would basically need a magnifying glass to see in order to go back to a previous app. It sort of feels like someone at Apple complained and said Android has a back button, so Apple said let's do something, and this is what they came up with. It definitely feels like an afterthought and something they just really didn't put much time into. When it comes to Siri, it's not even in the same league as the Google Assistant. I don't want to go too deep into this, but here's one example. Hey Google, set a reminder.
What's the reminder?
Hey Siri, set a reminder.
I don't see an app for that. You'll need to download one.
See the difference? I will admit cameras on the iPhone are pretty good, but still not better than the Pixel 6 Pro or even the Galaxy S21 phone that I've used recently. Video quality might still be better in some situations on the iPhone, but a lot of that is going to come down to personal preference. I just notice on iPhones it does tend to make your skin color a little more orange than what it normally is. Let's say that you're using an iPhone for video and you want to get your files to your Windows computer. Well, on Android, all you have to do is connect it to your PC with USB, drag and drop files without too much trouble. With iPhones, it's sort of ridiculous how you can't just copy files over. You basically have to jump through hoops to get files off of the phone if you're using a Windows laptop or PC. I don't know, maybe once they switch from a Lightning port to USB-C, it might be a little bit easier because then you could use an external drive like I do on my iPad to get files off, which actually works really good. It's a shame the iPhone is not quite as easy to use as an iPad. I don't know, maybe they're wanting you to buy a Mac to get your files off. I don't have one to test it with. I just know on Windows, yeah, it's not fun. People out there that say iMessage is one reason that they just love their iPhone. But to be honest, it doesn't feel like anything special compared to other messaging apps that I've used. So I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't quite see what's so special about it. Even if you have friends that own iPhones, there's really no reason to switch to iMessage. I mean, unless you don't want to offend iPhone users, because then they're going to see that green bubble. But to me, it's sort of weird how Apple wants other iPhone users to know you have an iPhone without actually telling people you have an iPhone by changing the colors of the bubbles from blue to green in iMessage. I don't know, it just seems a little weird. As you can see here, this is a message that someone actually sent me. I guess people are a little surprised that I switched to an iPhone since I've been using Android for so long. Now, because the home screen icons take forever to find anything, for me, I just had to use the search function to look for pretty much any app that I was wanting to use. It still took a little bit of extra time compared to how I use things on Android. Definitely takes some getting used to and just a longer process than how it's set up on Android. I'm just so used to swiping up to access all my apps, and being able to move stuff around on the home screen just makes it so much easier on Android than iOS. So for me, I feel like it's just easier to manage all of your apps right there on the home screen on Android versus on an iPhone. Now, when it comes to battery life, it's actually pretty good on the iPhone 13, but to be honest, it's not much better than my Android phones I've used recently. So for me, that's not really a reason to switch. The keyboard on the iPhone is definitely a little bit different than on Android. Autocorrect is not quite as good as on Android in my opinion, and I don't know if I'm just used to how Google does things, but it wasn't too bad to get used to after a while. Trying to select text or modifying text that you just typed seems to be one of the weirdest and most complicated things that I've ever seen on the iPhone. I'm just curious why Apple doesn't use Touch ID anymore, because I always find myself putting in the PIN number to unlock this phone, because Face Unlock doesn't really work that great and it's just not consistent enough for me to use every day, especially compared to a fingerprint scanner like on Android. Now, for some reason, external links seem to be one of the most complicated things for Apple to figure out. When you're using third-party apps and trying to open a YouTube link, it opens within the app instead of the web version or the YouTube app. It's really strange because it doesn't work that way on Android. I mean, if you want to click on a YouTube link, you just click on it and it actually opens in the YouTube app. I know this one's sort of nitpicking, but Android just seems more consistent with things like this. I know there's some people that say the notch on the front is a reason not to use an iPhone. Well, to be honest, I don't really notice that as much after using this for a while. But again, Face Unlock is not quite as easy to use as Touch ID or a fingerprint scanner. So I don't know, that might be a reason not to switch to an iPhone. Some other things I didn't realize until using an iPhone. Clearing notifications seem more like a chore than on Android. Everything just seems like it takes an extra step to do. So yeah, when it comes to notifications, way easier on Android. Another thing that's a little strange to me is just about with every app, to go to the settings, you actually have to exit out of the app, go over and find settings, and then scroll down to find that app in order to change the settings. Then you can go back to the app, open it, and use it. Again, just something else that's just way easier to do on an Android phone. Another thing that I didn't realize, when you're using an iPhone, you can't just cast to things like a Nest audio speaker or certain devices like that, which seemed like a really easy thing to do on Android. It's like the more I use this iPhone, the more I realize just how much I miss using Android. Now, when it comes to Apple CarPlay, it's actually pretty nice. Pretty similar to Android Auto, so not a huge difference in my experience. But I do like how on Apple Maps it says to turn at the next light or next stop sign, instead of on Google where it says address, number, street name, slow, monotone, and then repeats it a couple times, but that's a pretty minor thing really. Just wanted to throw that one in there. So after all of this, if you're saying, Fishby, I don't really care about all these reasons. Okay, go ahead, buy an iPhone. I'll even leave a link below to some that are probably on sale. But in reality, there's so many things that are similar now between Android phones and an iPhone that you can't really go wrong with either. And after switching to an iPhone, it just made me realize how there's just a few things that make me prefer Android over an iPhone. So if you've made it this far into the video, you may want to say thanks by subscribing, and don't forget to give a thumbs up if this video was helpful. This is Brian from Fishby Productions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.